Uh, Fast forward, if you're watching this live right now, cover your ears because I'm going to talk about what happened to Gabe on the show. Okay? You've been warned. There you go. Dude, you were such a gangster for the way you...
What's going on, everybody? This is season 2, episode 2, and I have a great friend of mine. He is a high school buddy. This is 10 years in the making. I mean, we graduated in 2010. He was a legend at school, and he is still a legend to this day. He was on Beastmaster's obstacle course on Netflix. He was a D1 athlete at Rice, and more recently, he was on The Bachelor Presents Listen to Your Heart. His name is Gabe Baker. I have the thing queued up right now. I'm about to bring him in. I hope that you enjoy, and hey, let's just jump into a great conversation. We're going to talk a lot here, so here we go. Bring him in. Yes.
Yo, my man.
Dude, yes.
Dude,
it happened.
Forever.
Dude, okay. This is 10 years in the making.
Dude, that's so true.
When did we get so old, bro?
Life's flying by, man. It's crazy to think about it. Yeah.
Bro, and you have been busy. You have not wasted a day. You have not wasted, since we graduated, you have not wasted, not only have you not wasted a day, you have lived a life, like 10 lifetimes worth of achievements, opportunities, blessings in these 10 years, man. And I'm so grateful that you're jumping on with me. Go ahead, let the people introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are.
Sorry about that. Go ahead, say it again.
Go ahead and give your introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are.
Cool. So what's up? What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining in here. Oh, pleasure for me to join in with my man. My name is Gabe Baker. I'm a current resident of Houston, Texas. Grew up in San Antonio. Me and my man, we went to high school together, which is crazy. Graduated the same year, 2010. Man, and I guess the recent update for me, I'm actually moving to Nashville on Saturday. So that's a big change up, and I can share like what's led me there. But yeah, man, I went to college in Houston, played football and was an engineer, and then I went to seminary and done a lot of ministry work and worked in the local government in Houston and done a lot of cool things. And so just like experimenting with life, and it's been extremely adventurous. I've learned so much.
Brother, your resume is you are the most interesting man in the world. There is nothing that you have not done and not done at a high level. You have literally done so much. You're so famous that I've met people on airplanes that know who you are. I don't know if you remember that. I actually, I sat next to somebody on an airplane, guys, that knew Gabe. And that was actually, that's how famous he is. I just like, they're just people that I see in public, and they're like, yeah, I know him too. I'm like, what? This is craziness. Now, I need to say this, guys. His greatness didn't just start when you saw him on TV, multiple times as an athlete or as now even a reality TV star. But his life began here at MacArthur High School, where he was named Mr. Mac, y'all. Here's Mr. Mac. Here's some of the things that Gabriel Baker did. He led FCA, was president of the Unity Club. He was on the cast of Bye Bye Birdie. He won Match Idol. He took second place in Battle of the Bands. He was an NHS officer. He was in PALS. He was an all-area football player. He was the homecoming king, summa cum laude, and so much more. And you were in orchestra, and you sang in choir. How did you have the time? How?
Yo, I'm so flattered. That's an awesome thing that you found there, that gem of the yearbook in the picture. Dude, high school was an extremely transformative time for me. It was the year that I really entered into my walk as a disciple. I got baptized the day before my sophomore year in high school. And it was kind of from that point where I really grew in like my understanding of like just honestly being comfortably myself. And I think that really tipped the scales of like, okay, like if it works, let me just try it. And more like just throughout time, I really just enjoyed expanding my involvements and interests. And I think a lot of it came through just God really putting on my heart a really big interest in like creating community with people like across different interest areas. And so I'm flattered that you read that, but literally to me, that was a bit of a reflection of things. I think at the moment, I didn't really think about it that way, but in retrospect, that was kind of something that was on my heart that I really enjoyed exploring the things I was interested in and then like meeting people across the board.
Dude, and I'll tell you this, like, because this is such a special moment because like we went to high school together. So it's like, I get the climate, I get the culture, I know the players. And when I say that is a feat, all that you did, it kind of like, you know, I often reflect back on high school. I'll go back and I'll think about my time in high school, what I decided to make of it. And one thing that I can tell everybody on the stream about you is the consistency of your character and the way that everyone viewed you and your reputation on campus. And like you broke the mold of the popular guy on campus because you were popular in the right way, and no one could say a bad thing about you. And that to me, as a teenager, bro, that was crazy because people had plenty to say about me and not always positive things to say about me. But you were such a light. And then I believe that your testimony as a disciple of Christ, that people knew that. And that wasn't like a secret. And people knew that you were a Christian. And in the way that people are like, that's how Christianity is supposed to be, right? Like, that's what I've heard. And that's what people talked about. How did you handle that all the way through high school and keep that consistency in your walk?
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for saying all that. It's really humbling at the same time. I was. It's funny when I think. One other thing I think about when I look back on my high school years was how much emotional growth I went through in terms of just like communicating with people and knowing myself. And I was grateful to really be. I think God put it on my heart to really being comfortable. I think it's kind of my first answer to my first question, but I look back and like the consistency came not because it was like a really like, I don't know, a really intentional thing on my mind. I feel like God just allowed me to be really comfortable and like he protected me from a lot of different things so that when I was entering in through a lot of other places that I just kind of knew what I wanted to do and what I knew was right. And then I kind of knew what would make me uncomfortable. And so I stayed away from the things that made me uncomfortable and did the things that I knew, like what would make my parents proud and what I really felt like would honor God. And I was I feel like I was, one thing I've grown, one thing that's really made me is I've had a really strong fear of authority. In different ways, like human authority and then fear of God has grown along the way. But that really has put me in a way of like trying to be honestly living kind of above reproach and just like trying to be a respectable person. And that's taken it's kind of grown in different ways. But I really appreciate that question because it's a lot of it, I'm like, man, I don't even know. I don't remember like how I felt a lot of times. I was just kind of going and I kind of knew myself and God really helped me pull me along to be like, hey, this is just be comfortable with where you're at and stick to your guns, you know? And he really allowed that to be me and me find like just security in myself, in God. So that's a bit of all over the place answer, but it was just.
No, perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know what? Like that to me is astonishing because like you say things like, well, I don't even know how I got there. But we could trace it back to what you said earlier. You're like, hey, when I got baptized right before sophomore year, I said, I'm all in on this thing. And God just had a way of just lining up steps. And you could tell, I think, you know, I guess I gave my life completely to God halfway through my sophomore year. Like there was this weird, cause I came from Garner. I came from Garner Middle School. Garner was its own, it was its own social experiment. And so we all came to MacArthur. We were the reason bad things happened at MacArthur. And so I came in super just identity crisis, I guess you could say. My father's been a pastor now for 22 years, up until that point, 12 years. And so, you know, that was tough. And I'm Latino, Pentecostal. So we weren't allowed to do anything, right? It was shut down. My mother's Dominican. I was afraid of her. Like I could not mess up. Like, but obviously I don't want to go to school and get bullied and made fun of. So how can I do the two life thing? And I think sophomore year, I can attest to that decision, man. Like when you make your decision for Christ, there's just something that happens. It doesn't manifest itself the same way, which is what I loved about your testimony. Mine is very different. The way I functioned as a Christian in school was very different than you, but it was all the same. It was all producing the same thing for the kingdom. And I think growing up and maturing more, I've been able to, how can I put it? And now as a full-time pastor and full-time ministry, there is that sense of the body where it's like you can't be you can't function as the other person. Yeah. You have to let every part of the body function in its own way. And you'll catch who you'll catch, and the other person will catch who they'll catch. And I think that I can attest to how you caught people with your testimony, with who you were, your excellence. I mean, really, honestly, no one could talk mess because you were so excellent at everything. Like, what were they going to say? You were so excellent at everything. And so my question is this. Are you dreading or not dreading our 10-year reunion? Obviously, coronavirus happened, so that maybe that's a sign. Maybe we got to wait till 15 or 20 years. Is that something that you thought about? Like, you're like, am I going to go to that reunion? I mean, now you're going to Nashville, so who knows if you'll ever come back to San Antonio. But had you ever thought about that?
Dude, I have. And so for everyone that's on, this is our 10-year anniversary for our 10-year reunion would have been in May. It was already in the works of being planned, and then Corona hit. And I'm honestly, even graduating from high school, I had been one, honestly, be like, man, I think it would be fun. I'm kind of very open to being a part of that reunion whenever it came, you know? Yeah. Time flies. I'm still intrigued and open to being a part of it. I've been one to really make a strong intentional effort to maintain whatever connections as possible through the years, like even with college friends and even high school friends along the way. And that's really made my life so fruitful, in the sense of just like, hey, you know, where has everyone gone? What does it mean to even try to help each other continue to move forward in life? And regardless, and I think just, so even when I go to different cities, one thing I'll try to do, and I've done over the years, is like, who do I know in this city, in any form or fashion, and can I just reach out to them to pop in and say hi? And that's been really, really meaningful. And so, like, I'm interested in being a part of the reunion. If it could be a Zoom thing, it could be, you know, virtual, it could be in person, but I'm open to it. And I think there's just like, I think reunions get a bad rap because I think people are uncomfortable or may feel like they're not meeting their expectation of what they want to present of themselves in their life, you know?
Right.
But I think there's just a beauty in reconnecting friendships or creating new friendships that weren't had in high school. You know, I think life is all about relationships. So that's where I'm at with the reunion. So I'll be there.
I think it would be interesting. I thought about this for myself. It's interesting because I'm married and I got a little baby girl. She's 1 year old now. Yeah. And I mean, and I'm looking through, dude, some of our friends have like 4 kids. I'm like, whoa.
Different life.
For 10 years, they just got down to business, got married, have 4 kids. I'm like, Woo! I guess I took a little bit time. And obviously, Gabriel, you are not married. For obvious reasons, I know that because of a certain program you were a part of recently.
True.
I need to know. Tell me about Chris Harrison. How is he? Like, my wife wants to know how he is. When I was jumping on, like, that was one of the questions. Like, he seems like such a chill dude. Is he the legend that we see on screen in person?
Yeah, he's like he is as consistent and as steady as he comes off on TV. He's like, it's like one of those things, like he's the Michael Jordan of his thing he's doing, that kind of thing, to where he's just in his element, and he just knows how to do everything right down to the T. And he's super personable, he's super kind. But yeah, I just remember like meeting him for the first time, like walking into the mansion, and he like spouted out like everything, like he knew me. He's like, "Hey Gabe, how's it going? What's it like coming from football at Rice to being a musician?" Wow. I was like, "Yo, how do you know all this about me?" So it's one of those things, like I just tell people he is super pro. He's super genuine and a sincere person. Yeah.
And so going into that process, I guess, how much of the Bachelor process did you know before going into it? Had you watched seasons? Did you know about it? Like, and then being a Christian on top of that, because you have, right, like the two sides. How'd you go about that?
Yeah, so I never watched the Bachelor season.
Really?
No, I didn't.
Really?
Yeah, man, never did.
Did you go? You just went in blind?
Yeah, kind of.
I
mean, obviously, being in the U.S., you kind of understand the nature, like the show concept.
Right.
I'll also say, like, leading into the show, I didn't, like, it wasn't until I didn't like, when the show was initially presented, I didn't know it was actually going to be under the Bachelor umbrella of shows. I knew it was a new concept produced by the Bachelor with this music focus of things, and so.
Wow.
It being kind of this musically geared reality show with, this dating aspect, I was like, hey, I'm not afraid to be myself in a space where I can create relationships. And there was, it's kind of being you and being willing to just create authentic connections. And then, and having that music side was really intriguing to me, because, like, hey, I've always wanted to really, get my own music, and I love being with musicians and creating, and honestly, was open to finding love too. So that's kind of that reality. And then the end of being a Christian, I was like, yeah, of course it is a very uncustomary and unconventional space for a Christian to be in. I really did my best to like count the cost of, like, hey, is this, based on what I understand it to be, is this something that I feel like I could confidently navigate? Right. I really felt like God would protect me in any place I go. And I just felt like I was confident enough in myself that I could put myself in an environment and hold to my standards and just be a light for God, regardless of what that was. And so that was kind of just my perspective and objective going in. And
you know what? You were able to maintain that through high school, so I was like, Gabe has the most self-discipline that, like, out of anyone. If he could handle the environment of high school, being a hormonal teenager and being all right, he can handle the Bachelor. He'll set the standard. And we were cheering you on. Dude, the moment I found out, me and my wife, dude, we were going nuts, because, like, my wife got me onto the Bachelor. Like, she was into it. So she had me watching like 3 seasons before you get on. We're watching every episode. Every time you get on, we're cheering, right? We're like, home team. That's our dude. That's our guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, when I texted you, you were really short. Is there like a contract that you signed? Like, you can't be negative or positive about, if someone reaches out to you, said, hey man, I'm excited. Like, is there something that you have to sign?
Yeah. So obviously there is contractual things, non-disclosure agreement stuff, that you can only say certain things. And you kind of get media trained to where, like, you just keep things very broad and very, appreciative of people reaching out in whatever form or fashion. So you can just get very tactful when it comes to responding people who
I was like, man, I don't want to get him in trouble. He can't be getting sued by The Bachelor. I don't know how much money he has, but The Bachelor got a lot of money, and I don't want him to get sued. And so okay, cover your ears, everybody on. Is it all right if I say a spoiler? I'll warn everybody. If you're listening to this at a later time, fast forward. If you're watching this live right now, cover your ears because I'm going to talk about what happened to Gabe on the show. Okay? You've been warned. There you go. Dude, you were such a gangster for the way you left the show. I told Lex, I was like, oh my gosh, this dude got in on his own terms. He left on his own terms. He said, listen, if it's not going to be us, I don't want this. And she was straight up with you. And you're like, all right, ain't no point in moving forward. How was that? Do the producers, better question, do the producers try to navigate you to towards a decision, or are you free enough to make that? That was a bold move, and I think a lot of people commented well on the way that you handled yourself because that was such an independent move. Is there like a bending that the producers try to bring, or was that like straight up, this is my decision and I'm gonna go through with it?
Yeah, the thing that is very authentic about the experience is that you choose how you navigate it, right? They tell you this, and they hold to it, is that they're not going to force you to do anything beyond what you choose to do, right? And so part of me just going into the experience is like, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to maintain my integrity, and if there's an aspect that I don't feel like I will be able to maintain my honesty, I'm not afraid to do what I need to do to maintain my honesty, And so that was, because my whole thing, even just like beyond the show, was like I want to do everything I can to be confidently myself. And I've learned through the years that the only way you do that is just intentionally being transparent and honest. And I've grown a lot in that. I have a lot of challenges with being honest sometimes, and not because I'm being directly deceitful, but because I can kind of beat around the bush kind of thing and not share my full heart's heart. And so really getting into the experience, like, hey, the only way that I know I can really be myself is that I share where I'm at honestly. And so that was really just where I was at. And the production and network is really steady in that lane of like, hey, we want you to create something that's real and not fake, and that's all on you to do that.
Yeah. And so would you say when you watched back the season, were you surprised with the way they edited it? Were you like, oh, because when you're in it, are you blind to a lot? And then when you see it back, you're like, oh, all this was going on? Or did you feel that they told a different story? How did you feel about the editing afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know how it's going to look on TV, and they only have so much time to show everything. So you kind of are just content with whatever comes out.
Yeah.
And then again, you are like, just like in any situation you're in, you only see what's going on with that's around you, right? So when you do watch it back and you do see like, oh wow, this was happening outside of what I was navigating or what situation I was in, it is kind of interesting to have that broader perspective. Like, oh well, that was happening at the same time. That's very interesting. That's what kind of leads to this, and so you kind of just accept the reality of what is shown on TV, and again, there's only so much time to show everything, so you kind of just roll with the punches.
Yeah. And how was the response of the people, like at post Bachelor? How's the response of the public? Did people reach out to you, strangers? Like how's that response been?
The response has been, I've been pretty encouraged by it. I think there's been just a lot of conversation just to share, like openness to share, like, hey, some people were like, hey, I don't, honestly, I got some good, honest sharing. Like, man, I didn't feel comfortable with you being on the show. I'm like, appreciate you sharing. This was my heart with doing it. Whatever it was, just like having a dialogue between the two of like, yeah, thank you for sharing. If you were encouraged by how I did the show or were not, or whatever it was, if you're, I think there was just a good openness as much as possible to communicate on either which end people were with it. And so, that's kind of how I felt. I was definitely encouraged by it overall, even if it was something that people maybe were like, man, Gabe, honestly, I got some people like, I really don't think you should have went on the show. I'm like, well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm going to do my best to continue to grow and how I'm navigating things. And, you know, and so I just appreciate the open honesty in both whatever ways it was. So there was some just great overall response, and I was really appreciative of that.
And that did your personal life get really noisy? Like, I'm talking about, like, your DMs probably went crazy. You probably were just getting messages from people you don't know at all. I mean, just like the world opens up after that, and a lot of people that you never knew. How are you navigating the noise now of everything? Because you mentioned personal people will come and say that. How are you navigating the people that you didn't know in the first place, like all the strangers and all the people from the outside coming in? How are you navigating that?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot more people that I'm social media acquaintances of now, right? People that are, you know, tuning into my social media life experience and adventures, and so I think it's been cool. I think I'm really happy for whatever platform I have to really be able just to share my life, share my story. I think that's the beautiful thing about social media, is to really make use of it so that you can be honestly you, the good, bad, and the ugly, and that's the journey. That's the objective, right? I think it's, you know, obviously it's hard to show the bad things, or it's uncomfortable to show the negative things sometimes, or the non-happy things. But yeah, I'm just happy to be able to connect with you know, so many more people, and people that are interested in me, in my life, you know, and that's a lot of fun. And my man Mike just mentions, because you're intriguing. And I think that's a big part.
True, Mike. It's true. Thank you. Thank you. Mike's spitting truth on this live. You are intriguing, man. I think it goes back to what we began with. Just your ability to be open enough to go in different spheres fearlessly, and just accept whatever it's going to be when you get there. And that translates so well to so many different people. And we could tell how genuine you were. And a lot of people, at least from what I saw, wanted you back on The Bachelor. They're like, bring that guy. That guy was a breath of fresh air. I'm so glad he was real. Someone bring this man back. My question is, would you go back if they gave you an invite?
I'd have to do some serious thinking. I think when it comes to any reality, or if it's a dating show or any other thing, like if it's a competition show, I always just evaluate, hey, is this going to add to my life in such a way that I really want it to? You know, where do I want to go with my life? Is this going to contribute to where I want to get to, you know? So that's my very tactfully given answer to that. But I think it's just like, when it comes to any opportunity, I just do my best. It's like, hey, would this add value to me or not? And so I'm in the fence of, like, I'm really comfortable with how I navigated the show, and I'm honestly happy to move on beyond kind of any dating reality shows. So there has to be something very convincing to get me to go on another one. But I'm just super appreciative of the opportunity I was given, because I learned a lot through it, and I had some incredible takeaways, some incredible relationships.
Yeah. And I think that comes from a place. Would you say that you learned that, like, to keep your true north and to really be introspective enough to say, is this thing that I want to involve myself in, is this building me? Like, at the end of the day, is this going to build me, or is this going to be something that could potentially break me? Where do you get that from? Do you get that from your parents? Did you get that from church, a friend, a mentor? Where do you draw that from most?
Yeah, I get it most. I've gotten it most from my relationship with God and my parents, and that's kind of my go-to answer for a lot of the things that I do, my mindset, my attitude. A lot of incredible relationships and mentors and such as well. But I definitely lean most on God and my parents, in the sense of them just telling me, hey, the only way that I've known that you can establish the ambiguities of life is being founded in your own truth, right? And a lot of people are found in the truth of, like, a subjective truth of themselves. But the thing that really surpasses even more so, and really supplants anyone through the ups and downs of life, is, like, the truth of God. And knowing just the steadfast love, the promises, and the conviction and the love and the grace that come from living in God, that gives me the confidence to be like, okay, this is what I know to be true. This is what God has shown to be true throughout time. And show the true colors along the way of like, living in love with God really proves as it should. Like, you're going to grow. You're going to grow in your own self-humility. You're going to grow in your ability to encourage and lift up others. And there's no, I'll say this, like, there's no better way to be your best self than being closer and closer to God, because God is the person that knows you the best. He created you, right? And so I'm always inspired by the idea of, like, I think the people who are closest to God should be the best versions of themselves, you know? And so if you're not the best version of yourself and you say you're close to God, I think there's got to be some analysis and reassessment of, like, your relationship with God, because God knows you the best out of anyone. So that should be that influential aspect that should take you to the next level of knowing you and knowing how you should use your abilities and standing strong in your in the face of life and just being steadfast and consistent.
And I think that this is a good segue into what I wanted to ask you about everything happening now. We're in the middle. It feels like right now this culture war is a civil war between a lot of different groups throwing their hat in for a lot of different beliefs. And, you know, with everything that happened with, you know, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and then George Floyd, and then really Trayvon Martin, everybody else. I mean, the list of names is actually ridiculous. And all that Black Lives Matter, the movement, the organization, the statement, however you want to look at that, has forced people into a decision right now where people are having to decide, right? And seeming like silence, you made a decision to be silent. You wanted to speak, you made the decision to speak. You said this, that was your decision. And you have been an influencer, and you've been an influencer all your life, maybe a little more spotlight right now. What would you say to people trying to navigate all that's going on? This is really complicated. How do you find yourself navigating it? Because I'm sure people are putting pressure on you as, you know, an African-American influencer. What are you going to say, right, for the movement, for the cause, that or the other? What would be your suggestion to people, or your advice during the season we're in?
This is a time like no other, right? The immediate scripture that does come to mind is James 1:19. There's a lot of others, but it says, brothers and sisters, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For a man or woman's anger doesn't bring out that which is going to able to glorify God. So I butchered that, but being quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And I think a lot of the best ways to really navigate this time now is to be understanding of, like, don't jump to conclusions. And how do you get to a place of empathy as fast as possible? Because everyone wants the same objective, bottom line. Everyone wants everyone to thrive in this world, in the lives that we have. People want, obviously, you want to remove struggle and challenges and people feeling, belittled or put down, or all these subjugated, all these different things that people don't want to feel. People want to amplify whatever voices are being suppressed, right? I think there's been a lack of solidarity across the board of what the issues are. And so the only way you get to a point of continued growth and progression from a cultural standpoint, from a societal standpoint, from an issue to issue standpoint, is that you listen. I think it's easy to be in your own lane and think that your experience is what everyone experiences. And so if someone says something that conflicts with your personal experience, you shouldn't jump and say, oh, you're what you're saying and is completely irrelevant or not true because that's not my experience. But it doesn't make sense. But that's just an expression of a lack of empathy that you can have for what people are going through, the challenges that people go through. So listening to understanding extends yourself to be in a position of, like, wow, maybe I need to challenge how I've been considering this reality, or challenging how I've been looking at this person and their struggles. and that is the thing that it's a give and take. And I think a lot of times people are giving their perspectives and not taking that which of others. And then things are stagnating. You're always in conflict if you're always talking and not listening. And I think that's what happens a lot of times in this situation, to where there's a culture war, there's perspective wars. It's everything is completely divisive and politicized, and there's no growth because there's no solidarity, and there's no solidarity because there's no listening to understanding. There's no listening to understanding because there's a lack of humility for people willing to being their perspective to being challenged. And so it's like a cyclical thing of like, but it gets down to like, how can I get to a place of empathy? Because we all want the same thing in our collective society. But the only way you get there is by looking beyond your experience and looking to understand someone else's.
Oh, come on, somebody. We're going to pick up an offering right now. All right, Gabe, drop your cash out. That's it. I feel there's $50 in the chat right now. $100 in the chat right now. Come on. Come on. We're going to pass the hat around. Hey. That is so good. And you know what? My next question is this then. Because I've been in a lot of Christian, obviously by vocation, I'm a pastor. And so I've sat in a lot of circles with, you talk about the mainstream pastors that you would know, and other denominational leaders, local. And the church right now, I feel, is in confusion, really, by far and large. We are definitely not at the forefront. That's for sure. That's 100%. We're not at the front. Where do you think the church is dropping the ball? And then how do you think they could pick up this fumbled ball and take it to where, I think, like you said, everybody's trying to go in the right direction. We want people to thrive. That's the gospel. It's restoration. It's redeeming and all of that. How do you think we can respond as a church?
I think it's been the same issue for a long, long time with the church overall. I think if you were to look at Christian history, like the history of the church through time, a lot of this is how I've seen it. A lot of responses end up being polar swings, right? You come from, even you look at the 14th century, like at the time of just before the Reformation, and Martin Luther and the things that happened then. You have the Catholic Church, and there's a lot of abuses. There's a lot of good things in the Catholic Church, but you have Martin Luther, and you have this pocket of people in that time that really want to push back against things and want to rewrite things to get it back to the scripture and things, right? And so he knocks down the doors, and things swing pendulum to the far end of things. The gospel is opened up. It's given to the access is given beyond the bishops and the priests. It's given to the lay, and then what that ends up doing, it ends up opening up avenues of people without maybe a theological backing to responsibly handle scripture, to abusing it, right? And that leads to heretical teaching and different things. So I give that perspective because there consistently lacks balance in approach to situations. And it's hard to have balance because people are steadfast in what they see and what they believe. But I think the thing that really cuts through a lot of the ambiguity is the grace of God, right? And the grace of God is the foundation of the gospel. That's the reason why we have the opportunity of salvation, because of the grace of God. But what that does, the grace of God challenges our understanding of what we can control as humans, because we can't control the grace of God. We can't control who God forgives. We can control only our response to the understanding of what God calls us to do. And so when I think of issues of the day, the more you lead with grace, the better off you are. When you lead with grace, that changes your approach to issues, because you're giving people the benefit of the doubt. You're listening a lot more, and you're saying, okay, I'm open to being wrong in my perspective because I'm going to lead with grace. But a lot of times you can lead if you lead with truth. You're leading with this understanding that everything in my human control, I'm doing everything right. You know, and I think one of the craziest thing, one of the cool thing, I think impactful things to look at is, even during the civil rights movement, a big issue that was had was between the perspective of Martin Luther King Jr. and that of a lot of church leaders. And if you read the letters from the Birmingham jail, you see that to where a lot of church leaders at the time and I think it wasn't just white churches, white led churches. It was other ethnically led churches, but a lot of them were against even Martin Luther King's push for social change because they were compartmentalizing spiritual issues and human issues, right?
Wow.
They were saying that there's a divide, and like you should just pray more instead of focusing on the human social issues. But those are one and the same. Like you look at the example of Jesus, and he was just as focused on healing the sick and lending a hand to the poor as much as he was, spiritually calling people out and lifting people out of their spiritual depravity. So I think there's always a balance in how you approach situations. And I'm really focused on how I can be a person of balance when it comes to engaging in the issues of the day. And so, that's a big question of like, how does the church grow in this? And I think it has a lot to do with like, hey, how can we lead with grace so much more? And realize that that the gospel, the message of Jesus cuts through any issue of all time, any issues, right? And it always leads to reconciliation and redemption and understanding the plight of people, regardless of what situation they're going through, at the same time of holding the truth. So again, it's a long-winded conversation, but I think it leads with, it's like leading with grace.
In conclusion, respecting your time, man.
Yeah,
and everybody and everyone's loving. And someone asked me, do I do this often? I do, but it's not, there have been just special moments where things are being said that I'm like, yes, for right now, this is for right now. And Gabe, you are speaking what should be yelled from the mountaintops to people. I think one thing I've learned from a mentor, as clarity goes up, overwhelm goes down. Wow. And I think people are overwhelmed online with either not knowing what to say, or are they being too quiet, or are they being too vocal? And another thing, if freedom without direction equals frustration. And when people started rioting and looting, obviously I don't condone any of that, but that's just leaderless people voicing frustration. Yeah. People have direction, if people have hope, if people have faith, and they know where to run to when crisis happens, I think that we can see real change in our society. Gabe, last final thought for us. What would you challenge people with in the time that we're living right now? What would you challenge people with?
I think it's funny, when this year opened up, it's 2020, right? Yeah. And everything was geared around, hey, this is the year of vision, because the 2020 and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
And everything is really flipped upside down from what people thought it'd be like. But I'm really confident, and as challenging as it is, I think it's still a year of vision and a year of clarity, because I think we are really in a historic time. And I think my challenge for everyone, and this is a challenge I'm holding to myself, is like, what is God trying to teach you in this time? Like individually, and how are you going to take advantage of the lessons that He's teaching you? Because again, just as there really is no time, there will be no time ever like this, maybe in our lifetimes, in terms of to where everything about society has been really quieted down. Mm-hmm. And I really feel confident that I don't think there would have been as much of a response to the George Floyd death if quarantine hadn't happened at the same time.
Wow.
And I think mainly because what happened was that a lot of like these kind of expressions of abuse of power against a minority group, specifically the Black community, have happened across time, right? Yes. What happens is that there's this uproar of voicing of the grievances and like, hey, we want change. Sometimes there's something that's a lot of times there hadn't been. But then the next media cycle comes through, right? Mm-hmm. And then sports come on, you're watching all these things, and your favorite TV show is starting up. And so what happened at the time that George Floyd was murdered, not only was it extremely egregious, and there was no way anyone could talk your way out of it, but there wasn't the normal media cycle to suppress this situation, right? Yeah. And so I just say that I just say there's just so much space for the right messages to be captured now.
Yeah.
And this is something, even me shifting to Nashville, I think it's been a beautiful time for me to really take the time to think, to really look at, what is God teaching me here? How can I be bold? How can I really walk in the Spirit and just be led by the things that God is teaching me, and stop waiting for something else. Stop waiting for a crisis to be humble, to learn.
Wow.
We don't have to wait for that for us to really be vigilant and understanding of what matters most, and to listen to the challenges that people are going through, to really to be to help be a part of change. And so that's my encouragement to people now. Is like, hey, how do we grow in our internal empathy for others? So even now, it's like when you have to wear a mask. I mean, sure, it's an inconvenience to you, but what's the objective of wearing a mask? It's for others. It's not for yourself.
Right.
So how can we be more empathetic and just be in line with the needs of others?
Right.
That's something that's really been impressed upon me so strongly. Of like, okay, what is God trying to teach me through this time? How can I just continue to listen and not drown out the lessons through social media and watching something on Netflix all the time? Let me just sit down and slow down and listen.
Man, that is so encouraging. That is something that everyone can do. I appreciate your time, Gabe. Where are there places that people can find your stuff?
Sure.
I saw you were on Netflix too. On, I don't know, Beast Hunters or Beast Masters.
Yeah.
You were doing. Can you just give? I want you. I know you. I want you to humble brag. Where can they find you? What are you working on? You're going to Nashville. You're doing music. All the above. Your Instagram, YouTube, all that.
Yeah. Thanks, man. So the Netflix show is called The Ultimate Beastmaster.
There you go.
I was on it. You're just about right. It filmed a couple years ago. I mean, it aired in 2017. I filmed it in 2016, but it's still on Netflix. I'm on season 2, episode 2. If you want to jump to the right episode. But that was a fun experience. But yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm most consistent in terms of sending out things that are coming up that I'm releasing or working on through Instagram mainly. But you can follow me on Twitter, and on TikTok. I'm growing in my TikTok game.
All right.
All at the same handle, the Gabe Baker. I got a lot of songs I'm working on that should be releasing pretty soon along the way, and so yeah, just I'm working on a lot of different things, trying to continue to focus my efforts so that I can have the best output for the stuff I'm working on. So yeah, just stay tuned in here on Instagram and Facebook. Follow me in whatever ways. And I have a website as well. If you just search GabeBaker.com on your normal browser, and you can look at a lot of different things I have there. I'm going to have a lot of just write-ups and blogs and different things I'm going to be uploading there, GabeBaker.com. And yeah, I'm just learning a lot and hoping to share it to people.
Wow, Gabe, the ironic thing is you are on season 2, episode 2 of Beastmasters, but this is season 2, episode 2 of Homies and Heroes. And I'm grateful that you joined me. We need to have this discussion again. I think popular demand in the comment section calls for it. I appreciate you taking time, man. I'm sure that a bunch of people are hitting you up, but dude, catching up after so long. Now we won't wait 10 years to talk again, for sure.
That sounds good, man. And I'll be back dude, we got to meet in person too. I'll be back in San Antonio on occasion, even though I'm going to be in Nashville.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll be in Texas regularly, man. Texas forever. So
dude, you can't forget 210, bro. You can't forget 210.
Never,
grateful for you.
Yeah, thanks so much for the time, brother.
All right, brother. Take it easy. All right. Y'all, as you know, I just said it. This is season 2, episode 2 of Homies and Heroes. If you're wondering, how often do you do this? I do this 2 to 3 times a week. I announce it on my page, different people. I just had a friend that's a battle rapper. You might know him. His name is Street Hymns. I just had him this last Tuesday. I have a friend that's the drummer for King and Country. I have another friend that's a pastor at Passion City. I have a lot of people that do a lot of great things. And I'm going to release these episodes. One thing you need to know, and I'm announcing it here first, y'all. My YouTube channel and the podcast for Homies and Heroes are all up. Go to my bio, click the link, and you can already see the episode with Street Hymns. I'm going to be putting this entire episode on there as well. And so it'll linger a little bit on my channel, but you'll see it taken off my Instagram, but I'll put it on YouTube and I will put it on podcast as well. Thank you for tuning in. This is Homies and Heroes Season 2, Episode 2. If you want more episodes, go to my link. We'll have more there for you. Be blessed and have a fantastic, fantastic Thursday night.